Hey, welcome to this video about sexual fantasies. In this video, I want to share with you one of the most fun things to do in sex, which are fantasies. Now, let me first talk about what a fantasy is really. And there's two types of fantasies, okay? We have fantasies that we have on our own. Let's say I'm a person, me, Charlie, and I have a fantasy of having sex with a stranger. Okay, this is one of my fantasies. I don't know this woman at all, and we have sex. Now, I may make it true or not, and I can fantasize with it all the times, as many times as I want. I can masturbate to it, and I can imagine it, and I can visualize it, and that's the type of fantasy that I can have on my own, and I don't have to make it real, because one of the things and most important things to understand about fantasies, as the word says, it's a fantasy. It's something that's not real. It's something that's in your head, something that you would like to do or you can visualize. So fantasies can stay there in your head forever. They can be fantasies forever. That you don't have to make them true. So you have first these fantasies which are individual for you, and then you have fantasies that you can do with a couple. As a couple, you can have fantasies that can be both in your imagination, or you can role play them. Let's say you have a fantasy of doing a threesome, but you don't want to actually do it with a person. You can fantasize about it, and when you have sex, you can talk about it and say, hey, imagine we're doing this, that, and it's in your head. You play the role, you speak it, but you never bring another person into the threesome. You never bring a real person to do the threesome, and it will always be a fantasy. It doesn't become real, let's say, okay? Because fantasies can be always fantasies, stay in your head, or they can actually be a fantasy that you have and make it real. And then it becomes a real thing. It's not a fantasy anymore because you've done it. You may fantasize other things, or you may fantasize with other people, but if you have a fantasy of doing a threesome you never done, now once you do it, it's a real thing. It's already happening. Now, the fantasies that stay in your head, there are fantasies. There are always going to be fantasies, and they can come back and go, and they can come new ones, and whatever. Maybe you see a movie and you get inspired, and now you have this fantasy, and you can masturbate to it, and you can do, or even you can do it as a couple, and you imagine yourself doing that. Those fantasies will always stay in your head, and those, let's say, are low-risk fantasies, okay? Because there are fantasies that they never come true, so really, there's not so much risk to them. Now, there's higher risk fantasies, which are the fantasies that you have that you make come true. Let's say, example, it's easier to do an example. You have a threesome, and now if you keep it in your head forever, you never bring a third person to your threesome, it's always going to be there. But if you bring that person, you actually have the threesome. Now it's not a fantasy, now it becomes real. Now that becomes, as a sexual fantasy, it becomes a sexual game. And now both of you, if in case it's a couple or 3 people or 5 people, there must be some agreement. There must be some rules that you agree before doing it, and you have to speak about them before you actually do them, because they can actually harm your relationship. So sexual fantasies are great. They're a lot of fun. Actually, to make them come true, it's a lot of fun, but you need to speak about them before, because not everybody is ready to have and actually make some fantasies come true. Because you might have them here and they sound very nice, but when you do them, you might get some emotions out, or you might feel things that you don't like to feel, and that actually make you really angry, or they make you really sad, and then actually can break a relationship. And believe me, it makes no sense to break a really solid, good, loving relationship to make a fantasy come true. It is not worth it. It's better to keep it in your head. It's better to keep it in. If you don't know if you're going to be able to stand doing a threesome, there's a video in this course about how to do a threesome. If you cannot stand it, if you don't think you can stand it, if you're not strong enough, if you're not ready for that, if you're not very solid as a couple to do it, it might break your couple, because you might start feeling jealousy, you might start feeling some types of emotions that really maybe you don't know how to manage, and it can break. You can lose the trust in the other person, and everything can go bust. So fantasies, when you are doing the high risk fantasies, you need to be aware that you have to talk about them before. You need to be ready emotionally to do them. Some of the things that you must do is, first of all, agree on the fantasy. When you say, okay, I'm going to make this true, must agree on the terms of what you're going to do, how far we're going to go, how much are we going to do with this, and so on. You must establish a stop code. You must say, hey, if I say this word, I want to stop. If there's other people involved. Normally this is when there's other people involved. Or if you're doing something that you could go to jail or something like that. I don't know, whatever you might be doing. But you must find that, you must talk about it before you do it. And you must agree on the terms, and you must agree on how far you want to go. Very, very important. For high-risk fantasies to come true in your couple, there must be love, respect, and trust. They must be present. These three things must be present. If not, there's risk of everything going bust. Okay, now after that, I want to give you some examples of things that you can do. Okay, I'm going to go first the easy ones, the low-risk ones that you can do. Let's say anal sex. If you've never done anal sex, it's a great thing to do. It's fun to do. Dirty talking. If you've never done dirty talking, you should try dirty talking. These are fantasies that if you've never done, they're great to do to start. Things like biting, like soft slapping in the butt, things like that are fun to do. Sex in the car, sex in public, that's a great one to do. Or maybe in the changing room, in one of those stores and things like that. Sex in the plane, I don't know, things like that. They're low risk in terms of emotions, okay? They're fun because it's like you can get caught, and that's a fun thing to do. So these are things that you can do as a couple, and there's no other people involved. Masturbating in front of each other, and then role-playing. Role-playing is one of my favorite ones, because this is a lot of fun to do, actually, because it actually takes out that actor that you have or actress that you have inside of you, and it makes you express yourself, and it's fun to do because you can do any type of role playing. You can do the doctor and the patient. You can do the masseur that comes and gives you a massage and it ends up in sex. You can do the plumber. You can do the personal trainer with a student. You can do the student, the professor. You can do the strangers that meet in the bar. I've done that. This is one of my favorite ones. Go to a bar and pretend that you just meet and go to the toilet and have sex. This is a fun thing to do, a lot of fun. Do exhibitionism, like have sex in public and where people might get caught you. That's intense, but it can be fun. If you're doing it in the outside, in nature, it's a lot of fun to do. You can do a porn movie. You can pretend that you're doing a porn movie. You're the actor, the actress, and you can pretend that you're actually, and then actually film yourself and then look at it afterwards. It's a lot of fun. Make sure that there's a lot of trust there because films can end up anywhere. So you must be a couple that's very solid together. If you're not a solid couple, that there's a lot of trust, you don't do this with a stranger because that tape can end up anywhere. So, but it's a lot of fun to watch yourself have sex. It's very exciting. The cleaning lady at the hotel. This is one of my favorite ones. One of my dreams, my fantasies is that and having and do the same thing in the airport, like walking in the airport and meet a stranger and have sex. Things like that. Those things you can pretend that you actually do it, like you role play the whole thing. Now, if you role play, make sure you go all the way through. Act it. If you don't act it, if you don't take it seriously, the acting, it's not going to feel real and it's not going to be so exciting. If you start laughing and don't take it serious and, like if you're doing the prostitute, if you're the guy, you pay her. You pay her money and she keeps the money. She actually acts as a prostitute. You both know where you are. You know that trust. So, hey, let's do the prostitute thing and you're going to act like, she's going to act like a prostitute and you're going to act like the client. And you're going to pay her. And that's what makes it fun. You're a couple, it's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to do as a couple. Role playing is one of the best ones. Now, some of the high risk, and these are the ones that I was telling you before, that it requires a lot of talking, it requires a lot of trust, love, and a lot of understanding. If you want to do orgies, threesomes, swingers, BDSM, I'm not into that, but if you're going to do that, you better know what you're doing because that can really be intense. So if you're going to go into those things, make sure you talk about it before you actually do it, and that there's trust and there's a love, because especially if you're bringing other people inside. like orgies and things like that. Those are very, very intense, and you must be ready for that emotionally. There's people who like golden showers and things like that. I'm not into that, but if you're going to start to do those things, make sure, you talk about it, and because that's like spitting and humiliation and insulting and things like that. You can role play that, and you can do it. It's like an intense dirty talking. You can do that, and you can take it to the next level and maybe do some slapping and things like that. But you need to know, you need to agree, you need to know it's a play, it's a game, it's a fantasy, because if not, it can create a lot of problems. So, as I said before, make sure you don't go too far so that it actually destroys your relationship, destroys the trust, destroys the love. Very, very dangerous. There's a fine line there. So you need to be very careful with that. One of the fantasies that many women have is like being raped. Many women fantasize about that. That's surveys actually say about one of the most common ones. And you can simulate a rape. You can do that as a couple. You can say, okay, let's simulate a rape. Now, it requires a lot of trust, because if you want to play real, it's going to be a little bit violent, and I've never done it. I don't think I would ever do that. But if you're going to do something like that, you need to be very careful. You need to know everything before you need to have everything very, very, very well taught, and the bonding and the trust must be so strong that you can actually go through something like that. So be careful with the high risk fantasies. Make sure that you are ready for them. One thing that works very well, especially when you're bringing people out from the outside, is doing soft versions of everything. If you're going to do a high risk fantasy, the ones that I just talked to you about, do a soft version, especially if you're bringing someone from the outside. For example, a threesome, let's say, which is a very common one. If you're going to do a threesome, do a soft version of the threesome. More on this on the video about threesomes, but do a soft version, because a soft version means that you don't go all the way through, like maybe never go to penetration and just do the kissing and touching, maybe, that's all, nothing else. There's no penetration, there's no oral sex or anything like that. And see how you feel. And that you can do with everything. Maybe you can go like orgies, for example, if you're into that, you can go to an orgy but not participate, just look and only interact with your couple. But be present. So see other people have sex and you have sex, but don't interact. That's a way of seeing how you feel. So start soft, start slow, because sometimes we think it's going to be incredible, and we are, it's a big upset when you feel those emotions, and suddenly you feel like you don't trust your couple anymore, and it can create so many problems that it's not worth it, really. Again, I repeat this, it's not worth it. So that's it for the fantasies video. There's many fantasies you can do. If you look up in the internet, if you watch some of these porn movies or whatever, you can find other fantasies that maybe can inspire you. Again, start with the low risk ones, enjoy them, make them real. If you don't want to make them real, just keep them in your head forever. But start slow. With fantasies, you must start slow when you bring them into the real life, okay? That's it for this video. Hope you enjoy it, hope it serves you, and I'll see you in the next one.